Konami Studios.
Jinny Hex, we got a special with this new character that I know very little about. So I haven't read all of the Young Justice book. I don't know a lot about this character. But I do know is I'm kind of intrigued by her. I like the idea that in the modern day there would be some lineage to Jonah Hex. So do it. Just make that character. And we did it here. And we got a special. It's kind of nice before the universe changes in Infinite Frontier that we're getting a special dedicated to this character. This was a nice little read. It didn't do a whole lot in terms of setting up a new status quo or giving us an ongoing for this character. But it's this character seemed pretty popular from all those new people that we've seen in Young Justice and the new Teen Titans stuff. I think Jinny had a place in a lot of people's hearts as one that they really liked. So yeah, let's give her a special before we change the world, and it turned out to be pretty interesting. I actually thought this was pretty unique. It did a lot of world building for the character. It set up her status quo if anything happened with her going further. That'd be pretty cool to see. So we open up this book and we are in Dipping Springs, Texas, and we see that Jinny is working at this auto body shop that her grandfather or grandmother owned, and now she's just inherited out. Her mother just passed away recently, so she's trying to figure out well, should I just keep this business going afloat? It's not really what I want to do, but it's pretty much all I got, so I might as well keep it busy. We see some people that work there with her friend Lady Bird, whose name we don't really know, and then Alex, who's another this big bulky guy. He doesn't play a big part in the story, but he is in this book. You're oh, that's a kind of a fun side character you could throw in here. And as she's doing this strange man just happens to show up, and he's like, hi, I was an old friend of your mother's. I just heard about her passing. And she's kind of like, well, you're too late, so I don't know what you want me to do here. He reveals himself to be Jack Duckett, and Jack Duckett's there was a while back when I was going to marry your mom, and he holds up a picture of himself with a young version of Jinny's mom. He's like, well, how old are you exactly? And it's oh, is this going to be her daddy? Interesting stuff. So they kind of go into a separate room and just kind of talk I loved your mother, and there was some stuff that I don't know why we just separated, and I didn't know she was pregnant. I don't even think she knew she was pregnant at the time when I left, but things just drove us apart, and I know it means nothing, but I kind of want to maybe just try to remember and honor her in a way. So, if you let me, I'd love to get to know you a little bit while I'm in town. And there's some hesitance from Jinny, well, should I do this? It's just a strange man I've never met before. We can't even confirm he's my dad. But they do kind of start hitting it off. We get to a couple pages where they're hanging out over the next couple of days, just trying to get to know each other a little better. And right away, you could see Lady Bird comes up to Jinny, and she's like, you really want to trust this guy? You just met him. For all we know, he's just out for something we don't understand yet. One time, Jinny and Lady Bird are walking back to the auto body shop, and we see that Jack has tied up Alex. And we know what's going on here. You're like, oh yeah, of course he's going to be a bad guy. We kind of figured this out. So earlier we saw that Jinny showed him this chest that was given to her family. It's inheritance from her great-great-grandfather, who was Jonah Hex. It's all that's to their name now. The Hex name is all of these weird magical artifacts and space shit that are in this treasure trove. And we saw that Jack takes it, and he's searching for this one thing. And we see that he's looking for something called the God's Eye. And the God's Eye, I guess, is a magical thing that allows him to control reality or make some magical stuff happen. It's pretty weird, pretty cool at the same time. So he opens up this eye, he implants it into himself, and he becomes a character called Three-Eyed Jack. That's a cool name. I like that name, actually. It's pretty fun. But you see, the world's starting to change around them. There's a big explosion in the background as Jinny and Lady Bird are talking to the police, and all of a sudden, this big explosion overfills them. They're trying to run and hide inside the building. And when they re-emerge back out, the world's different. It changed. It looks like an old-timey cowboy place now. And Jinny's just trying to walk around what are we supposed to do? I don't understand this. Is my dad this mysterious villain named Three-Eyed Jack? And as they're walking around this place, Jinny encounters her mother, who has previously passed, and she right away she knows, well, this isn't normal. Something about this shouldn't happen. Why is my mom here? I don't understand that, She understands right away that this isn't her mom, and I like that idea. But it's you gotta trust Jack, baby. He's a good man. We gotta trust him. And she's immediately knocked out, and she's put in this weird house where she wakes up, and she sees that Lady Bird's floating on the ceiling. She's like, well, that's not normal. Her mother's kind of sitting in the center of this room surrounded by bones, and she's just come on, baby, I'm back. Everything's fine. We'll be okay. And then in walks Three-Eyed Jack, and he's like, yeah, you just gotta relax, girl. Let me tell you a little history between me and somebody you might know from your past. So we get some story about Three-Eyed Jack, and we realize that he is an like a not really a time traveling cowboy, but he's like an immortal cowboy from the time of Jonah Hex. He hired Hex to help him find the gold's eye, but seeing what the power did, Hex was like, I can't let you have this. So he takes it for himself, and he leaves Jack kind of just like stranded, but supposedly dead, but for centuries. And you see that this Jack is kind of like imprinted onto the god's eye. So he's like he's able to search throughout time to find it. And he eventually finds it with Stella Hex, who's a descendant of Jonah. And he's like, well, I have to find my right move to make it there. And when he found out that Jenny's mom died, he's like, well, now's the perfect time to get the God's Eye and have my power bestowed upon me. And immediately, he's like, well, this body's old and breaking, so I need to find some new sense of power. And he transfers himself into Ladybird. And we get a nice scene where one of the things that, well, let's put it this way. One of the things that we've touched on throughout the entirety of the book is this idea that Jenny and her mom had this special relationship through jokes, and they were always able to like make fun of certain things and make light of certain tragedies. And she kind of imprinted that onto her friend with Ladybird too. Like, they're really good with the joke stuff. So being able to use that power of taking down her father and having that relationship with Ladybird, she's kind of able to manipulate Three-Eyed Jack out of her friend. And you're kind of like, well, through the power of jokes, anything can happen, and it makes him weaker because he doesn't really understand what it's doing to them. And I kind of like that. It was kind of funny to see that angle. Very enjoyable. I have no complaints about that whatsoever. It's just a really interesting book. You know, it's not like over the top. It's not over dramatic. It's like, hey, here's a weird Western thing, kind of alien-ish, kind of magical. Jonah Hex personified, baby. You know, that's what this book is. And it did a great job at doing that. So they kind of easily defeat Three-Eyed Jack, which I get it. This is a special. We're not really going to like overstretch it if we don't have to. We get him out of Ladybird there. We easily defeated him. We capture the God's Eye back, and he's gone for good, supposedly, but we'll see what happens. And it kind of gives Jenny another moment to say goodbye to her mom, and that's a nice little cute thing to see. I thought that was pretty enjoyable. But things start to wrap up slowly. The world kind of goes back to normal. Ladybird and Jenny are standing outside waiting for Superman to appear, because of course Jenny knows Superboy. And she gives the God's Eye to Superman. It's like, could you just like not keep this around me? And Superman's always like, yeah, it's like this weird dimensional thing from space. We're going to have some people look at it. But once we get the information, we'll show it to you. And I really thought that was cute. That was really cute. And like Ladybird's like, well, how do you know him? That's okay, cool. It was really nice. Just a nice little moment there. The two of them just start talking, and we see that Ladybird did get some powers from Three-Eyed Jack still imprinted into her body. So now they have this special bond. They're kind of like sisters. And we see them, they're packing up, or they're headed to go on a road trip. Who knows where, but they just got to get away from town and have some fun and do something. So if they wanted to do an ongoing series with Jinny Hex, I could see it being something fun. I like the idea of it's kind of like this weird cowboy thing with these two sisters roaming the modern plains, and their weird cowboy dad's this like ancient being who's coming after their powers. That could be kind of fun. I'd like to see that a lot, but if it's just this special, I'm really happy we got it. Like, I don't think it's over the top. I don't think it's exaggerated in any way. It's just nice to have a nice story like this with a fun character that's like, here's a weird Western. Things are going to get weird. You're going to enjoy the characters a lot. It's just really fun and nice. So I actually enjoyed this. I was very surprised by how nice and relaxing it was, and I think a lot of people should check it out if you are interested in some more different stuff at DC. Are we going to see her return? I kind of hope so. For doing this weird legacy thing, I think one of the important legacies is to have that Jonah Hex connection, so having Jinny here, it's really fun. It's a cool story. I don't think it's one a lot of people are going to pick up or rush out to get, but if you have the extra money, and you're just like, hey, I want to find a nice little DC book with kind of a different story than what we've seen before, I would say pick up Jinny Hex the Special. It's really fun, it's really interesting. I think it's worth your time. Does that mean you have to buy it? Of course not, but if you just want something different, well, we're kind of in like this transitional period, maybe check it out. It could give you a smile on your face and introduce you to a new character you might like. So, Jinny Hex, the Special, I am going to give a 7 out of 10. And thank you guys so much for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, all that good stuff, and I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.